Good morning, everyone. Jeff, welcome. It's so good to have you with us. We loved your article, Real World Learning Civic Engagement for Students from the Bronx and Philadelphia. Jeff is the principal of Fannie Lou Hamer Freedom High School in the Bronx. Jeff, introduce your team.
Oh, hey, nice to be here. Thanks, Walter. Appreciate it. And not my team, but a collection of superheroes. We have Juvanee from Fannie Lou Hamer. She's our Real World Learning work-based learning coordinator at Fannie Lou. Tia Hall is the executive director of Philadelphia Big Picture, and Fannie Lou alumni and recent law school graduate, I think a week ago, maybe,
Wow,
Naseem Haamid. So yeah, it's we're really happy to be here and talk about the work that we all did together.
it's an amazing story. To kind of frame it for us, you mentioned at the top of the article that Fannie Lou Hamer is one of 275 schools part of Big Picture Learning. So tell us more about BPL. What is that confederation of schools and how many schools and from where are they?
Sure. It's a network of schools in the U.S. and international. Actually, I think
Yeah.
there's like maybe I think 15 to 20 educators out and visiting Australia schools right now from Big PL,
Yes.
the big network of schools down there.
Yeah.
And there are 10 distinguishers, and I think some of the things that are like the main focuses are like, individualized learning plans and like using internship and using the world as the classroom for young people. So they're in all different types of schools in the U.S. and international, rural schools, urban schools, so really small schools, bigger schools, and it really focuses on like young people's individual interests and passions. And Tia is the executive director of the Philly schools, and
Yes.
we have a lot in common. So we always try to figure out a way to collaborate. And this is around BPL Votes, and alumni Naseem Haamid came up with this great idea, and that's like we kind of like took it from there and worked on this like cool project together.
It really does set the stage for the story. So Naseem, you came up with the idea of BPL votes. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so just to tell you a little bit about myself briefly, I graduated from Fannie Lou as Jeff stated in 2017, which feels like yesterday.
Yeah.
Um, Recently just graduated from law school last week, so some gaps there since I've been in high school. But during my time in high school, Fannie Lou was a community school involved in community organizing and doing a lot of initiatives around the Bronx,
Yeah.
from civic engagement and registering folks to vote to working on initiatives around the Bronx River and access to green space. So that passion ignited for civic engagement while I was at Fannie Lou, and it
Yes.
has just followed me throughout my journey since then. So I happened to be sitting in my room studying one day, and I was like, oh, maybe I should write up a plan for something called BPL Votes and pitch it to the two executive directors of the nonprofit organization. And
Yeah.
then I'm going to start recruiting schools within the network to launch this initiative within their school communities. So I sat down, I kind of crafted what it would look like, how schools can make it their own, whether they were going to set up a lunch table in their lunchroom to get folks registered, whether they were going to do a day of action, what those start to finish steps were going to be. But it was going to be, bipartisan, focused on civic engagement, focused on teaching young people the power of getting out the vote, especially during a critical time, which is a presidential election cycle.
Yeah.
So crafted that, pitched it to the co-executive directors at BPL. Um, they were super excited, but they were like, you have to lead this and you have to go around and kind of work. I worked also with Joshua Poyer, who is the director of Student Voice at BPL, and
Yep.
I crafted this deck and started, meeting with schools. So first school I met with is obviously Fannie Lou Hamer. That's my home away from home back in the Bronx.
Oh yeah.
So met with Jeff and told him, hey, I got this idea. You think the young people at Fannie Lou will be willing to do this? Um, and he was like, yeah. And also, I'm missing a point. I kind of strategically placed the schools in the network that I would reach out to, given the importance of getting out the vote, which within those areas, which is why BP Philly was one of those schools. So Fannie Lou bought in. Jess is like, yeah, you know, this is your home. The young people are fired up. They're gonna join. And
Yeah.
also we set up a structure that it would be students that would get you know, um, a stipend for participating in the program, for
Oh,
leading the initiative as well. So we had an application portal where they would talk about why they wanted to do it, why they wanted to be involved. And I thought that that was an important part of the program as well.
yeah.
So we worked on that. And so met with Fannie Lou, met with BP Philly. BP Philly was also fired up and they were excited. And then it kind of went from just being a program that was gonna happen through the lead ambassadors that were gonna lead it and get out the vote, and then became a day of action. So the initial program was just gonna be two students at each school kind of leading and setting up the lunch table or going out and recruiting other young people to get out the vote and do it in different ways. And then it took
Yeah.
the form of becoming a day of action where Fannie Lou went down to Philly and they had a day of action. And there was panels, there was discussions. I sadly couldn't be there due to my law school schedule, but that just
Yeah.
goes to show the power of pitching something and having great folks leading great schools and having great young people and being able to take it across the finish line.
So powerful. And like any great idea, it got legs and just took off and had a life of its own. Jeff, a testament to you and your staff that students know they can come to you, you receive their ideas seriously, and help them take action. That's a great part of the Fannie Lou Hamer story, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I mean, I mean, it's part of like big picture, right? I mean, I know the same exact things happened down in Philadelphia. I mean, I think it's the idea, and like when Naseem was a student here, like there's a lot of student-led events, a lot of student-led, projects that they work on, and they could find the things that they're passionate about and interested in, and pursue them, whether it's through the summertime, through summer youth employment, or through the projects they did do during school, or like something that's extra. And so Naseem knew that there's a good way to like honor student voice here at the school. And so when he came back
Yes.
to us, and he knew we have like the next generation of young leaders here at the school, and
Right.
so he was able to come here and go to other BPL schools and say, I know you have passionate young people, and you give them the places to grow and the spaces to grow. So like, this is what I want to do. And both BP Philly students and Fannie Lou students like really rose to the occasion.
It's fantastic. So, Juvanee and Tia, on your end, as this project came to your attention, how did it take shape?
Oh,
Uh,
go ahead, Juvanee.
okay, so when it came to us, I have an internship class of 12th graders. And when it came to us, the students were actually a little quite hesitant, right? They were like a little bit nervous about going to, Philadelphia. Many of them haven't gone there before. And,
Or-
there was some hesitancy, but we did let them know, like, these are students just like you. And, this is a great opportunity to go to another place, meet new people. And the students definitely rose to the occasion. And when we got there, they were able to see the students, meet the students. They intermingled with one another. They were talking about, the music that they listened to, and they were singing, sharing slang with one another and just sharing like their experiences. And they were able to see the similarities to one another. So like all that hesitancy that was there initially was gone. And so many students, they still keep in contact with one another via Instagram and social media. So it was just like such a beautiful, amazing, powerful experience, not only for the students, but like as a teacher witnessing it. Like it gives me chills right now just thinking about it, just the impact that we had being in the streets of Philly and like talking to people out there. It was just so amazing.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with everything you said, Juvanee. I think the thing that was most exciting to me is that when this first came to us, just seeing it planted as a small seed and not knowing how it was going to take off. For me, like if there's an opportunity for our young people to connect with like-minded young people outside of their city, we say that, Philly is a city of neighborhoods, and so many of our young people, not only do they not get out of the city, they don't leave the block. Like they
Ah,
don't leave the 4 block radius of the neighborhood that they grew up in. And there's something so special about connecting with someone that's just a few hours away,
Right.
and seeing like the similarities and the differences and learning and growing from them. And that's what I appreciate getting to see throughout this process. Is just our students being pushed, being driven, them getting excited, them saying things like, hey, we don't need you guys to be on a meeting. We're going to set up our own meeting for just the students,
Yes.
and we're going to do this planning on our own, seeing them from, it's more than just what are we saying at a lunch table? How else can we get out? How else can we make impact? What else can we do? And that's continued. Something super amazing. I don't even think this was shared with you, Jeff. Is last week we had our annual fundraiser, and we give our students the opportunity to show off their project work. And we had a BPL Votes table, and these young people showed up and showed out with all the artifacts and evidence of their experiences. They got to
wonderful.
tell the story and like why is it important. They were talking to people like, "Are you registered to vote?" People that were attending the event. And so I just think that this is something that'll stay with them forever.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I'm just so excited about like what's next. And for them, what's next is getting to be a part of the Peace Block Party that I remember when I started at Big Picture getting to learn about and thinking it was
Yeah.
so cool. And now
Yeah.
our young people get to be there, experience it, connect with their peers, and then bring all of that energy back to Philly and say, what else can we do to make a difference? So this has been a really great experience.
There's so many things that in play. I mean, as an educator, I think of going from the Bronx to Philly with students. I'm thinking of the buses. I'm thinking of, the lunches. But there's more to this. So what are some of the other considerations that came into play as you're thinking about hitting the ground in Philly? I know you got dropped off at the housing authority and you were out around Temple University campus. What were some of the other considerations to make sure the kids were engaged and it was a positive experience and you got the traction you wanted?
So there were lettered pamphlets that the students did review to prepare them for what it is that they will be doing as far as interacting with people, and what does it mean to be involved civically, and using different methods of convincing people to, register to vote. And we had a great pre-session prior to going out with a lot of the staff members where we did role playing and with some of the community members, and they were able to see what it would feel like to be told no, and then what they can do to counteract that, like live in front of everyone like there. So like that was really amazing and powerful to have, and that helped to build the students' confidence before going out into the streets to get it done. So I felt like that information really helped the students to be effective in canvassing.
Yeah, great planning, especially since, as you said, this was their first time and
Yes.
you didn't want them getting caught cold with, so great idea to do the role playing. Tia, on the Philly side, it's like I hadn't even thought about the neighborhoods and how, when you grow up in the city, you have your own little world. Were there other considerations welcoming Fannie Lou Hamer students down that you wanted to make sure you considered everything as they came into the city?
Yeah, we did a lot of intentional planning to think about what parts where we would have students canvas.
Yeah,
And one of the things I think was really powerful, and you mentioned this, Juvenile, were the community members who weren't just a part of the role playing, but they were a part of the full day
Yeah.
experience. And so when they were the community members who were there are members of our community that go out and get people to register to vote. This is what they do. They volunteer to shift and make changes. So they talked about like this is our experience, and people are going to say no. Sometimes they're registered, sometimes they won't give you the time of day. And then those community members join staff and students in the neighborhoods throughout the city. That was really intentional. We also chose neighborhoods in the city where we thought it would be a lot of foot traffic, during the time of day that the students would be out. So, where are they going to get the most traction? There was a group of students set up outside of a grocery store that's in the neighborhood near the school and the housing authority. Of course, you heard about the students that were on Temple campus. There were
Yep.
other students that were on a main corridor that's filled with restaurants and shops. Just
Smart.
giving them an
Yep.
opportunity to interact with as many individuals as possible, while being close enough to the headquarters so that they can maximize their time. So there was a great deal of planning that went into where they went in the city. I know there were students that are like, oh, we want to get to this part of the city, and we're like, oh, that'll just take way too much time to get there.
Right.
But there will be future opportunities, and that's what I love about this.
Oh, of course. You're just getting
Yeah.
started. So I can just, and I said this when we were off camera before we got started, I can just imagine the energy and the enthusiasm that day. What went well? When you look back, what really went well that day that you're just like, we nailed it. This is exactly what we hope to get out of this.
I don't think you can underestimate how hard and how thoughtful the work of BP Philly folks was to set everything up. Like,
Yeah.
we had a panel beforehand of local officials, local politicians, of the owner of the supermarket, a black-owned business in Philly, who is
Yep.
works with Big P Philly, was on the panel, and other people who get out the vote were on the panel, and I think like young people listening to them was super powerful. And then also the idea of thinking about failure to register someone to vote is not failure, right? And so like
Right.
I think students left with the idea of like, wow, I interviewed or I talked to 200 people and I got 5 people to register, and that's a
Yeah.
win, right? And
Yeah.
like, and so that I think that helping young people understand that. And then I think the other thing, I think Naseem's original idea was around the presidential election, right? Which,
Right.
was a big election. But then I think what also transformed afterwards was kids then understanding also the importance of local elections and how actually they're even more important than the
Mhm.
presidential election, which I don't think the kids thought about on the way
Right.
down. And I'm not sure actually we as adults even thought about it on the way
Yeah.
down.
Yeah.
As the day went on and the kids saw and heard about the local impacts, that became like a big thing that I thought like was a real big takeaway and a real success of the day.
Agree.
Fantastic. Others? Any things that stick with you?
Yeah, I want to just add to that really quickly, and just there was a moment after the election was over. And we talked
Yeah.
about this as a team. I don't know if you guys remember that call. I'm like, what happens if if the election doesn't go the way that some of us hope?
Right.
And I remember one of our students, Maddie, who I love dearly and really has taken this and run with it. He's just a great advocate for our students and for our community.
Yeah.
And he just said, like, you know, once the election was over, he was worried about what was next. He is a child of an immigrant family, and he was very concerned about some of what he is seeing happening right in front of us, and
Sure.
immediately thought, how can I use what I learned from this experience, and how can I continue to use my voice in this way? And so he's been writing letters. He's on your heels, Naseem. He's like, I'm reaching out to BPL leadership. We need to figure out what we can do next. And so I love the idea that it didn't just start and end with this presidential election, but now we're looking at how can we use what we've learned to make change in our communities and in our nation more broadly, and that students are thinking about that. Not just Maddie, but he is spreading that good word so that other students are equally as inspired to get out there and make a difference. So yeah, that for me will always stay with me.
Wonderful.
I think what went really, really well was the intermingling of the students and the dismantling of this idea of this notion that, Philly students are so different from what we are. And I feel as if that is so powerful because now after that trip, the students are like, okay, when's our next trip to Philly? Or when are we gonna go to DC? Or like, like now they're ready to travel and see the world. And that is something that you cannot, you can't put a price on that, right? That willingness and openness to see the world, to discover the world. I just feel as if that is just so powerful. And the fact that it came from this event, like for me, it's just like so amazing for them. And like just having that zest at this young age is just so beautiful. So I feel as if that went really, really well. And the impact of that action of going to Philly for that one day, for those couple of hours, right? It wasn't even a whole entire day. It just really, really resonated with them in such a deep way. So I thought that went really, 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 really well.
And something you've set them in a course they can take the rest of their lives. Just a wonderful legacy you've started with the initial event. So let's flip it. What were the surprises? What didn't you anticipate that just kind of happened and you're like, wow, there we are.
Well, I didn't expect, like, I didn't know we were going to Temple, right? University.
Okay.
And so
Okay.
that I didn't realize when I don't know if I remember that, but I also thought like, oh, like we're fitting a college trip onto this like
Right.
event
Right.
also, right? And like I think, one of our seniors, I think I wrote that in the article, is that he turned to me and looked at me and was like, I really like it here. I could see myself at a school like this. And
Nice.
oh, that's okay. That wasn't unintended, but amazing, right? And so like, and I think just young people when they were and I was at Temple, so I didn't have all the other experiences. Like I wasn't at the supermarket, I wasn't at the
Yeah.
the street with the restaurant. I chaperoned the kids that went to the Temple University, and I think just and it was also actually happened to be club day, so all the students had different clubs lined up for like and there was a lot of like voting clubs and like political clubs, and so I think it was our students, our high school students at from Fannie Lou, and some of the students from Big Picture Philly, who were just seeing young people who like look like them at Temple University, civically engaged. And a lot of the kids were like, "No, I'm already registered. I'm already registered to vote." So for them, so for our students to see like young people who were like closer in age to them, who looked like them, and then were like already civically engaged, I think that was like on a college campus was like super unintended like consequence that was really powerful.
Mhm.
Fantastic. Others?
I would say the day of action was unexpected, right? Like I'm gonna start from like the inception of creating a deck that just had guidelines and
Right.
ways to set up discussions as like the lead like faculty ambassador who was gonna talk about and do the role playing and prep students to go out in their local communities and get
Yes.
folks registered to vote, right? Like there was no uh, headline day of action within that deck that I created.
Right.
And I share this to say the importance of, because it didn't have to be an alumni who created this initiative. It could have been a student
Yeah.
in the high school who had created this initiative. And I'm saying this because sometimes older folks don't listen to young people.
Right.
And and I want to use this as a highlight to say, listen to the young people. If they have an idea and they come up with something that might sound, for lack of a better term, outrageous, sit down and figure out whether you can make it a reality.
Yep.
And I think just pitching and saying, hey, let's in that initial meeting with Jeff and messing with Jeff because we have such a great relationship. Hey, how about we get a bus? And the bill is on Fannie Lou because I know Fannie Lou has all the money, just joking around with him. And it kind of just building and continuing to build and build and build. And once the young people got involved,
Yeah.
it was gone. So I'm just so happy. And I know I said this at the outset. Great folks who are leading great schools and have great young people and having
Yes.
the willingness to say, all right, let's find the funds, let's schedule a trip, let's work
Yep.
out the logistics because without the logistics and without all the behind the scenes, none of this would
Right.
have happened. But
Absolutely.
it just continues to grow and having folks who are willing to jump in and make the something that was on a deck, on a slide deck, into a day of action is just extremely powerful.
It's just wonderful.
I would
So
have
Tia, oh, go ahead, Juvanee,
I
please.
would just share something really, really quickly. So like
Yeah,
my group, when we walked and we were canvassing, we ran into a group of women who recently came from a funeral. And when we told them that we were canvassing, looking to get people to vote, and we were from the Bronx, they were so touched by it to the point of tears, and it impacted the students so much that they really, that these strangers on the street felt so happy and so proud that they were engaged in this action. So I just wanted to share that as like an unintended beautiful thing that occurred.
really touching. Now, Tia, you had mentioned that you're bringing students up to the Bronx for the next step in this emerging story. Tell us what that's all about.
Well, I have to say, I have to start by saying, and this is so, I had no idea that BPL Votes was going to happen, Naseem. But when it came to me, I had months ago spoken to a BPL member about bringing young people from Philly to the Bronx. A team of us went to the Bronx of staff members, and we were there for 2 days. You remember this, Jeff? We were all there, and I was like, we're together, and we're talking about gun violence at the time and how it's impacting our
Yeah.
school communities. And I'm like, I need young people to be here. I need young, and I mean, just dreaming it. And then here we
Yeah.
come later that we have this opportunity. So I had to start by saying that because, after the Bronx students came, Fannie Lou students came to Philly, our students were like all riled up. They're like, when are we going? When is our turn? Like, we need to go. And we're like, okay, we're going to figure it out. We're going to make it happen.
Yeah.
And we had it scheduled to come and participate in an event that was being held at Fannie Lou. The kids were so excited, and then schools in Philly were closed because of bad weather. We didn't hear the end of it from our young people. They were like, this is, it was literally no snow on the ground. I don't even know why they closed the schools. But we didn't make it, but we're going to make it this time. So the students are going to be heading up to be a part of the Peace Block Party. All arrangements have been made. We're so, so, so excited. And yeah, so we will be there. I put our babies to work.
Oh, yeah.
They're family.
Oh,
We're
yeah.
all family now. So
Yep.
whatever it is that they need to do, they're not guests. They can be put to work. So we are just so excited, and they're excited. Not one of them has been to the Bronx, New York before, so it's going to
Hey.
be all brand new for them. And so
Oh, yeah.
I just go back to what you said, Juvanee. There's so much power in just, getting off the block,
Yeah.
seeing another city, and just having them get the taste of what it's like to experience something new, and hopefully that travel bug will live in them, and they, more and more they'll grow to want to do that, and then they'll say, what's next? So yeah, we're excited.
Well, we can't thank you enough for sharing the story, um, and looking forward to hearing what's next for Big Picture Learning and Fannie Lou Hamer. Please keep us apprised because we'd love to continue to amplify this and celebrate this with educators everywhere. It's inspiring work. Thank you all for your time and for your enthusiasm and this gift of BPL votes. And we look forward to hearing the next chapters in the story.
Yeah. Thank you
Thank
all.
you. Thank